it on? Yeah. Okay. So welcome everybody to Navigating as a STEM undergraduate student series part 3. This is the final part of this series, and this session is for both STEM Arrive and STEM Thrive. It'll be co-facilitated by myself and Tiana. I'm going to pass it over to Tiana to introduce herself and to do a brief check-in.
So hi, Yuvia, and for folks who are going to be engaging with this recording later on for Arrive and STEM Thrive, thank you for being here. My name is Diana. I am a retention specialist at the AEC, and I also coordinate our STEM Thrive program. So that's why I'm here. I'm happy to be in the Arrive space because I don't get to do so as often, but I will be helping Nicolette with presenting this presentation. Do you want me to take it away with a check-in? Okay. So typically when we have more folks in this space, and I still want to do this with the three of us, if that's okay, just something light to get some energy flowing. I was hoping folks can share, so Nicolette, you as well, if folks can share maybe something that they are doing right now to take care of themselves that they enjoy. So whether it's an activity or like a show that maybe you are making a little bit of time for right now that you're really enjoying. So I guess I can go first. So right now I am watching The Crown on Netflix. The new season came out. If you're not familiar with The Crown, it just follows like the royal family. And it's mainly based on like the actual events, so it's really accurate, which is really cool. And it's really interesting. So I would definitely give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Anyone else? I'm gonna popcorn over to Yuvia. Is there anything that you are currently enjoying doing or engaging with to take care of yourself?
Well, I usually spend time playing video games when I have like free time.
Which video games?
Call of Duty or PUBG.
Okay, cool. Nice. I'm not familiar, but I have played Crash Bandicoot and video
Oh
games.
yeah, that's pretty nice.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing, Yuvia. Nicolette, do you want to share?
Yeah, similar to Yuvia, I also play video games, and right now I'm playing Guild Wars 2 and Genshin Impact, and they have like just a lot of story content and a lot of beautiful artwork in it.
That's really cool. Thanks, Nicolette.
Mhm.
So some shared interests and activities. So thank you. I'm gonna pass it over back to Nicolette.
Awesome. Thanks, Sienna, for that check-in. Okay, so we're going to get started with the presentation now. I first wanted to start off with just recapping and walking through what each of these different parts in the series touched on. So we started with creating your foundation, which really gave students a lot of resources and information and really gave you the what of being successful as a STEM undergrad and a little bit of the why behind using those resources and information. And then with part 2, building your foundation, it was really diving into the how you can use those information and resources and why leveraging those resources matter and what you can gain from them. And then today, we're going to go into conquering your courses, which is really going to look at how you can tackle your courses through staying organized and thought process behind that, and then recapping academic resources from part 2, but changing the perspective on it of how you can leverage those to be successful in your classes now and for in the future. So the parts that we'll be covering today is part 1, time management, and it's going to be broken up into 2 parts. The first part is really going to focus on your thought process and approach to picking out your time management structure and process. And then we're going to walk through a few different approaches to how you can build your time management structure and process. And I'll be covering that. Part 2 is the academic resources recap. So pulling back those resources from the part 2 presentation and really looking at how you can leverage those now for course success, and then how can you use those in preparation for future classes. So we're going to get started with time management. So to start off with time management, I like to take a step back and reflect and ask myself, what is taking up my time? And so some things that come to mind from a STEM student perspective of what is taking up time is some broad categories and commitments. So I tried to stay like big picture first before diving into the details. And so some big commitments that I really thought of were academics, your work, research, and personal needs. And I kind of broke up personal needs into some more broad categories, but not going too specific yet with your needs. And some of those pieces are your social needs, free time, and your basic needs, such as eating and sleeping. So taking it a step further and still asking yourself what is taking up your time, but really looking at the details of these broad categories of your commitments. So with academics, just really laying out what that consists of. Write down to all the assignments. So your tests, quizzes, projects, readings, essays, laying that out for yourself. Also writing out what is the quantitative of time that takes up within your academics. So office hours, lectures, tutoring hours, your homework time, study and review times. And moving to careers, looking at those same finite details, but asking more in-depth questions so you get a clear understanding of that commitment of work or research. So looking at where you work, how far is it, how many hours per week you're working, and how much energy you're using with your work. And then for personal, of reflecting on what your personal needs are, if that includes family, friends, relaxing, and going into those three categories a little bit more. Your social needs. So, what do you need to meet that social need? Do you need to connect with a friend one on one through like a Snapchat call? Do you need to be in person over dinner occasionally? So, really looking at what does meeting your social needs mean to you? Same with your free time. How do you use your free time? What does that mean looking like for you? Are you engaging in a new hobby? Are you continuing with a hobby? So really looking at and seeing what free time looks like for you. And then with needs, it might seem silly to write down your needs, but at times when you get overwhelmed or overworked, you tend to push your needs to the side. So um, reflecting and processing through like the needs that you need to meet, such as eating, sleeping, showering, and preparing for the next day, really helps you think and make sure to make time for meeting those basic needs. And one thing that I highly recommend when you're thinking about what is taking up your time, just to write it out. If you're visual or if you just like to see everything in one place, I definitely recommend writing out these broad categories and then giving each category its own space and writing down those finite details. So continuing with taking the step back and reflecting, we address the question of what is taking up your time, but also take the time to ask these other questions too, to really dive in deep and really reflect on your time management and your commitments. So another question you can ask is how much time is being taken up by what? When are things being done? This is a really good question to ask yourself because you're going to have those peak functional periods throughout your day. You might be a morning person, you might be an afternoon person, night person. Recognizing that will help you be able to tie those items to your peak periods that you really need to just focus on and get completed. How long are things taking up so you can strategically plan out different tasks throughout your day and be able to complete it? What do I do to prioritize what things do you have to prioritize and what things are flexible? You'll have things in your time management system that are going to be pretty consistent and static, and you'll have those things that are kind of fluid and moving that can be moved around when things come up and needs to be a little bit flexible. And the last thing is where are your gaps in your time and how can you effectively use them, because we're all going to have gaps in our days, and it's really important that we're aware of those gaps and to think of how we can fill them. That way we can create meaningful experiences and impactful experiences with all hours of our day. So once you take the time and reflect a little bit about on your time management, then you can start to actively dive in and explore tools that you can use to build up your time management system and structure. You can also do this in additional reflection to really understand what works best for you. So walk through these different questions of How do you learn best? Do you enjoy interacting with things virtually or physically? Do you need instant gratification after completing something? And how do you feel achievement or success when making progress towards completing something? That way you can be mindful of what works for you, your assets and your skills and your strengths, and apply those to your to different time management tools that you want to explore and try. Um, and some of the tools that I think of for time management is a planner, whether it's physical or virtual, a Google Calendar, a to-do list with sticky notes or written, and we'll be touching on both of those today. A timer and an alarm clock, time management apps, whether it's on your phone or computer, Canvas, and an accountability buddy. So the first thing that I would like to walk through is an example of how you can set up your time management structure. And this is a weekly to-do list. And you could do this to-do list either on a whiteboard or a wall or virtually. So I tried to recreate it being done on a wall / whiteboard. And so for this, you'll have your days of the week at the top. Then you'll have your classes at the side. And then these sticky notes, you can put all of your assignments and tasks that you need to complete for that day and for that specific class. To build off of that, if you're really a visual person and just tapping into that strength and that skill, you can color code your classes with sending one color sticky notes to a specific class. That way, when you look at your weekly to-do list, you can visually have like a trigger of, oh, this class, it's yellow. This is the class that's being represented that I'm looking in on. So if color coding helps you and visually and just overall stay organized, definitely do that. Assign specific colors to classes. Taking it a little bit further, you can add a column to the furthest right side with upcoming. And you can use this column to put different tasks that aren't necessarily what you need to get to for that week that's upcoming. So you can be mindful of that. Some of those items that you could put on there is your tests, projects, quizzes, essays, and your finals. I strongly suggest to put your finals on there because your professors will typically inform you, at least if you're going to have a final, and the date that you'll have that final. And as the semester progresses, your professors will inform you a bit more about your final. So they'll let you know if it's a cumulative or not, if it's open book, if you can use study aids, and just having um, those finals in the upcoming column already at the start of the semester, you'll just be able to add to it instead of having to try to figure it out as you go along the way. You'll be able to have a starting place and just build off of that. Also for this column, I definitely recommend to put tasks that are happening at least 2 weeks out to a month out. But the sooner the better that you're aware of these major tasks, definitely put them in this column as soon as you can. Taking it a step further, you can combine other commitments within this weekly to-do list. So having your classes and other commitments all in one space, that way you can have it consolidated and you don't have to re-reference other places for what your commitments consist of. So an example of what I did here is I took the bottom two classes out and put the student org and work on there. So you could have all of your classes and also put other commitments, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's a student org or if it's work or if it's programs. So the big takeaways from this one is to pick a day that you want to set up that weekly to-do list and have it be consistent. I recommend that the day that you pick is kind of around when your assignments refresh. So you'll just have turned in your very last assignment for the week, and then there'll be hopefully 1 to 2 days in between when the next round of assignments will be posted. And so you can use that in between time to set up and prepare for the upcoming week. I also recommend to set up multiple of these weekly to-do lists if just having one consolidated version is too much and too overwhelming. So I encourage you to make an academic one, make a personal one, make a research one, do whatever works best for you and for you to be successful, not be too overwhelmed. I also saw the chat box, so I wanted to stop there. Did we get any questions, Deanna?
No, we just had someone join. So, Shauna, thank you for joining. I think this can also be like a good time to check in about like if anyone has, like based on what you were saying just in that last slide, if anyone has like engaged in any of these things as like examples that Nicolette shared. Yeah, does anyone want to share any connections that were made there with the information Nicolette shared? I agree with you, Nicolette, having like different things to separate like academics and components. So for example, I use like a Google Calendar for personal like appointments and like reminders and things that are scheduled. And then I use my iPhone for my work one. And it helps
Mm-hmm.
separate not just for boundaries, but also like help organize things a lot better. So thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have anything that they want to share?
I think just taking a step back in general and just, realizing like at sometimes your career is going to step up more. And sometimes academics like finals is going to take the shining light. And then in my case right now, personal, and just realizing what you kind of have to do to be flexible. So taking a step back, whether it's a deep breath or the organizer, or both, it really does help. So thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to keep chugging along. So the next example of a time management structure or tool that you can use is a daily to-do list. And I definitely recommend to do this, but I also recommend in like the same breath to not have this be your only tool or way that you manage what you're doing, because it's great to get you through day to day, but it's not letting you see beyond that day. So you want to be able to have something that supports you throughout your current day that you're experiencing, but also helps you be prepared and work progressively towards what's coming up next. So to start off, you could either have this virtual, have a hard copy, but start off by putting the day of the week and the date, and then start listing out the tasks that you have to complete for the day. Next, ask yourself, what are each of these tasks for? So if it's for a class, write it next to it. If it's for work or research or something else, put it next to it so you can know what you're completing your task for. To take it a step further, you can also estimate how long these tasks will take. That way you can start mentally preparing for the breaks you'll need throughout the day, how much time you'll be spending working on just completing your tasks. Taking it a step further, you can prioritize your tasks. So a way to do that, you could put high, medium, or low next to the certain tasks. Something that I do to simply prioritize tasks is I kind of put stars next to my tasks. So the more stars that's next to a task, the sooner that I need to get to it and prioritize it. And it's a easy, simple, like visual trigger for me of, oh, this has 5 stars, I should probably do that next. So definitely try to incorporate prioritization in there for you. That's something that would be helpful to you. And then the last thing is that you could do is assign times for the different tasks that you do throughout your day. This not only helps you see when you should do it, so optimizing on that peak time, but it also lets you know as well as when to schedule in breaks, because you can, but it's not heavily encouraged just to power through a bunch of tasks. You need to give yourself a break just to relax, recharge, and get ready to take on different things. So this will allow you to visually see and plan in those breaks. And if you have a hard time incorporating breaks, I encourage you to put tasks back to back that are completely different as possible. So if you're working on math for one task and you need to transition into another, then work on English or reading, because it'll help your brain work in a different way. And even though your brain isn't getting a complete break, a different part of your mind will be working. So while it's recovering, another part will be focused and working itself while you're working back to back on tasks. So my biggest takeaways for the daily to-do list is, again, do what worked best for you. Do it written, do it virtual, or do both. You can have a combined to-do list, so having everything all in one place. If that's too overwhelming, then definitely separate it out. Have one for your work, personal, academics, non-academics, however you want to sort it out. You could also prioritize it either with a combined to-do list or separate to-do list. Something that I like to do is kind of do a combination of separate and priority. So I typically have a work to-do list, a personal to-do list, and an engineering professional development to-do list. And within each of those, I kind of put stars next to the tasks that I want to prioritize. And the separation between tasks helps with me feeling to decrease my feeling of being overwhelmed. So, like I was saying before, take a step back and reflect on what you need so you can create something that'll be meaningful and support you with managing your time. The next and final possible tool that you can use is a Google Calendar. And I'm sorry that the image is really small, but this is a screenshot of my calendar from undergrad, I think a few months before I was going to graduate. And some of the pieces that I included in here was office hours. And office hour is right here, and it's the same color as one of my lectures. So I could have that visual aid of, oh, this is when the office hour is happening, and this is when the lecture is happening. I also gave each of my classes a different color, so I could have that connotation of knowing what class I was looking at and working on. I also had meetings in here so I could know just when that was going to come up and have that on my schedule. I had work as well. I had assignments even on here. And with my assignments, some information that I put on there is if it was due on Canvas or if it was due in person. If it was due at the beginning of class, if you could turn it in the middle of class, or if you could turn it in at the end of class or even outside those time intervals. And that really helped me just have it all in one place because it gets overwhelming at times with classes that require you to turn it in different ways, either different ways and different hours of the day. So just having that placement on my calendar really helps me a lot. I also had events on here. I think this is an event, some social time, and then I kept the content and topics that the classes would cover on a weekly basis at the top as well. And I had the colors correlated to the color of the lecture again, so I could have that easy correlation. Something that I didn't do really well was having a separation piece. So this is from, again, undergrad, but when it got too overwhelming visually and just overall. So my biggest takeaway is to have multiple calendars so you can hide certain bits of information when you're not ready to look at it or if it's just not necessary to have up readily. So a calendar that I would suggest making is academic. So having your lectures on there when your assignments are due and the content that you'll be covering for the week. Another thing that another calendar that I would suggest creating is office hours. It's great information to have available, but you don't necessarily need it visually on your calendar at all times. Another two calendars that you could have is meetings and events that you'll attend as well as you might attend. And for those might attend meetings and events, it's really helpful to have just that information accessible for you. So if you make that quick change of mind to attend it, you'll be able to turn that calendar on and be able to pull that information to get to where you need to go. Also have your work on there and then your social and personal calendar. So I want to quickly walk through how adding a calendar works because I just learned that you could use multiple calendars this semester. So I want to make sure everybody is able to do this themselves as well. So what you want to do is go to the Google homepage, make sure you're signed in to your Gmail account. Once you're signed in, you want to go to this 3x3 grid and then select calendar. Once you select the calendar, it'll bring you up to a screen that has your calendar. You want to go to the leftmost side of the screen and scroll down to other calendar and select the plus sign. When you select the plus sign, it'll come up with a menu. You'll want to click create new calendar. and then it'll come up with a new pop-up screen. With this new pop-up screen is the information for creating your new calendar. You want to put the name of your new calendar, a description if you would like to, and make sure to check that time zone. When you have that information all in, you want to select the create calendar, and then a pop-up will come at the bottom with the name of your calendar and letting you know that it was successfully created. And you can select configure so it could take you back to that main screen with your calendar, and the new calendar will be listed under my calendars now. And you can select different calendars to appear. So if the square is full, that means those events and meetings are being displayed. If it's not selected, then that means those items are hidden from view. Is there any questions before I wrap up with these last 2 slides right now?
I didn't know you could create multiple calendars on Google. So thank you, Nicolette. This is really cool.
Yeah.
Has anyone else used any of the methods that Nicolette just went over with like Google or like a task list, prioritization? Does anyone want to share their experience with those things?
I've used the Google Calendar, and it's pretty helpful because it like reminds me like to turn in assignments or like complete them before the deadline.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Has it been kind of like hard to just like check Canvas as like your only method of like keeping up with assignments?
For Canvas, yeah, I have to like log in daily to like make sure that I'm not missing any assignments or anything.
For sure.
Some of my Canvas assignments it's like a 2-part, like you make a post on one day and then like your replies due on a Sunday. So I was grateful our teachers warned us in the beginning, but my Wednesday, Thursday is always like, nope, you're good to go. And it's like, you're lying to me because I have to make my original post. So something, using the calendars, or like I use alarms on my phone or just something. I'm past the years of thinking I can remember it all. I used to be that person. I don't know where that went, but she's gone. Yeah, she's gone.
That's like the main advice for this presentation. Yes, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh man, that's great. I definitely resonate with that, Shauna. Like, I thought I could remember stuff like recently, a few months ago, like she's gone. Like you said, I have to write down everything. So I definitely can relate to that. Okay, so to touch on a little bit about accountability for time management, it's a really significant piece to having your time management be effective. And self-accountability, I just want to recognize, is very difficult. So that's why I keep saying to take the time to figure out what works best for you so you can have an easier and more fluid time with holding yourself accountable with your time management. Some things that you can try in addition to setting up your own structure and system is accountability buddy. I also want to recognize that it's very difficult to make these connections with peers to build up to an accountability buddy. But over time, when circumstances change and we're hopefully more in person, when you build up those relationships with peers and that comfortability, like just let them know, like, hey, I have an essay due on Wednesday. Can you check up with me on Monday night to see if I've started it? Building those relationships so you can have that form of accountability and somebody else that's external to just you. Using your timer and alarm clock, like Shauna mentioned, this definitely can help you just be able to recognize that you're going through time with your tasks. And once that time expires, it's kind of an encourager to you need to get to the next thing that you allocated for the day. So making sure that you not only get through your tasks for the full time you set, but also giving you a nudge to work on the next thing that you plan for the day. And then time management apps. These can look like a variety of different things. 2 forms come to mind. There's some apps that you can download on your phone or computer that will temporarily lock you out of your distractors. So if you use Facebook a lot or Snapchat, you can select those apps to temporarily lock yourself out of for a duration of time. if that's something that you might think would be helpful. Another thing that's kind of more a little bit motivational, I forget the name of it, but it's the app itself. You were able to just grow plants and grow trees for if you studied for the amount of time that you set. So for example, if you set the timer for an hour and select the tree that you want to like grow and develop, if you stay within that app window and just study for the full time, then you'll get that plant grown and be able to add it to your garden. If you tab out of the app, then your plant or tree would get sick or get a little bit unhealthy, versus if you had not tabbed out of the app or not. And the more successful times that you set and complete, the more plants and trees that you have to add to like your garden and forest. So just finding apps that work for you and like kind of cater to like your interests as well. And the last thing is I wanted to cover this for part one, is some takeaways and things to be mindful of. The first thing I wanted to say is that going through this process of building up your structure and process, it's not a trial and error process. It's a trial and learn process, because when you learn things that don't work for you or that do, those are both equally important pieces of information for you. So kind of reframe your thought process for when you're approaching time management. It's a trial and learn process, not a trial and error process. The next thing is being mindful and recognizing that the way that you manage your time will change over time, and that'll be a combination of different methods or more, and that's okay. Like things, you'll develop and understand yourself a bit more. The different classes and commitments will change, so will the structured system that you set in place. The next thing is what I've been saying throughout this first part, is just to take the time to reflect and understand what works best for you and incorporate that into your time management strategy. You have skills, assets, and strengths, so incorporate that into your time management structure so you can have a really successful and meaningful experience. And the last thing is reflect on your time management process from time to time. Make sure it's just as effective as when you first started out with it. Ask yourself some questions. How is your energy levels? How is your stress and anxiety levels? Is your time management process helping with this, or is it making your energy levels lower, you more stressed out or anxiety? So make sure it's working for you. And do you feel accomplished and gratification within your time management? If you are, if you aren't, why? So making sure again that the system that you put in place is not only effective for getting stuff done, but you feel really good and happy about the process that you have set in place. And I believe that is the last slide for that part. Is there any questions?
Nicolette, Shauna was just sharing that she didn't know the app, the example that you were sharing about the trees, they didn't know that existed, and I also didn't know, so thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I'll have to find the name, but I really liked it. I liked it a lot.
Cool, yeah. Any other comments or questions that folks have for that first section that Nicolette talked about?
I like that you said it's a trial and learn process. My grandpa told me when I was about 12, we don't learn from what we do right, which of course I didn't quite understand until many years later. But you know, you make mistakes. That's how we learn, you know. So I like that. It's not trial and error, it's trial and learn. So thank you. That's a great way to put it.
Of course.
Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into the next section. This next piece for the remainder of the presentation is just mainly to go over as a recap, like academic resources and how to like really engage with these in conjunction with like what Nicola was talking about in terms of like resources and time management. And so here are the things that we're going to talk about. So we have tutoring. We'll talk a little bit about those pieces. We won't go like in depth about everything, but it's mainly like how to really take advantage of these pieces and how to be resourceful with these. And so we'll talk about review sessions. academic policy and syllabi, virtual academic supports, researching your professors, your peers, printing, and then study spaces. And so let's go ahead and jump on with the first section. So with tutoring, the reason why we want to talk about tutoring in this section is because for tutoring, we know that with like REAC tutoring, or if you're doing tutoring with TILT or the Native American Culture Center, as stated in these examples, hopefully it's not just to like go over the material like that you need for your homework or that assignment coming up, but hopefully it's something where you are like, it's a resource that you're using for in multiple ways. And so a way that you can use tutoring to further your academic support is you can use it to review past materials that you are confused on, and so really wanting to engage in your learning, right? And so you really have autonomy also in like wanting to engage with your tutoring in the way that would feel helpful for you. So really connect with your tutor about like what are things that you need and how do you want to utilize that tutoring resource. It can be different in each of these resources. Sometimes like with the AAC, that might look different with TILT because AAC might be smaller group sessions compared to TILT. And so just really express like what you are looking to get other than just going over material for the assignment, that test. So really take advantage of it in that way. You can also connect with your tutors about classes that you might be taking soon that they might have experience with, and just getting an idea about like their experience and how to prepare. And then really gain their perspective, just so that you feel like you are connecting and preparing yourself for that course. And so really take advantage of tutors in that way, in tutoring resources. And then the other examples that were listed, if you want to go back real quick, Nicolette, the other examples that are listed on the bottom. So like the Writing Center is really good for if you haven't used it, just to get feedback on current writing assignments and to practice improving your writing as well, not just like getting something submitted, but really feeling comfortable with it, especially if your major is focused on a lot of writing, if you're thinking about graduate school. I wish I would have taken advantage of the Writing Center more. I struggled with writing a lot. I was always just like trying to get things submitted, but it didn't really serve me if I was like just getting things submitted, but I never really improved in my writing. And so I think it can be something helpful to use. And then we have Student Disability Center. So the Student Disability Center is helpful to get accommodations for your courses for each semester. And if you are thinking of something more long-term, they can also help you get services for that. And so a lot of students initially don't know like how to engage with Student Disability Center, but I think if you are just wanting to get more information, it's good to connect with them. If you don't have a disability like documented, they can also provide resources on how to get that on campus and off campus. And then student case management is helpful for academic support if you are experiencing anything that is impacting your ability to perform as a student. So if there are a lot of personal things going on with you that that is really impacting you, right? So if things come up in your life, student case management works in a couple of different ways. Staff can refer students. And so what happens is like staff can submit names to student case management. Student case management will reach out to students, letting them know about like resources, and then we'll verify to see if they can support you by communicating with your professors about providing you extensions. And so they're the ones who are really going to be taking the lead in that and helping you with the academics, to connect with professors. If you do want to connect with someone and you feel comfortable connecting with case management, they do have an appointment system set up on their website so that you can connect with someone to talk about like your situation, and then they can help verify like how they can support you with on-campus resources, or if you need them to connect with your professors to give you extensions and to work with you, especially with finals coming up. So it can be a really good resource. And a lot of students will sometimes get calls from them, but then maybe students won't move forward with any of those things in terms of resources, and that's okay. It's up to you. I think it's just to know that it's a good resource that is available to you. And then lastly, review sessions and peers are a great way to nail down content in classes. Sometimes we're in the motions of just getting things done, like submitted, but really engaging with the content so that you feel comfortable moving forward. So it almost feels like it's building like a cohort experience, right? Like you're attending, you're getting to work with students more, connecting with one another more, with the TAs, with professors. And so it just helps create those connections for future classes that you might have with your peers, especially when you get to the upper division courses that might be a little smaller. So you might see familiar faces. So it's just good to take advantage of. Um, yeah, that's all I have for that section. Any comments?
Yeah, I was wondering how the writing labs or the writing center, rather, how does that work? Or is that just contact them and they would let me know? Like, do I submit my rough or final draft and do they get back, within the same day? Do they need a couple days? How does that work?
Yeah, so feel free to jump in, anyone who's in here, if you have more information. My understanding is that you can set up some time to go over material with someone in the writing center, and there's also an option to just submit um, uh, like a piece that you just want reviewed. And I believe it gives you information on the website in terms of like that
Oh,
turnaround, but I'm gonna go ahead and just post the link in the chat for folks.
oh, okay, thank
Look
you.
at. Yeah, it's pretty, I think I looked at it a couple weeks ago, but it has like all the information there. And there's a way to schedule like a virtual appointment with someone to go over those pieces. Does
It's
anyone
probably
want to?
very case by case, like obviously like a 12-page thesis or something versus like a
Yeah,
like
it'll
a
tell
small
you.
paragraph.
Yeah, it'll tell you on there in terms of also like, do they accept like thesis papers, like how long, like they have capacity for. I think it has all that information on their website.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. Anyone else want to jump in or have experience with the Writing Center? Okay. And in the past, the AAC has had like writing drop-ins for a tutor. Unfortunately, we didn't have a tutor available this semester for that, but we are always looking for tutors to do that and step into that role. So just always ask at the beginning of every semester your retention specialist to see if there is a writing tutor available at the AAC, just because it can help alleviate with like a smaller setting, right? Even if it's virtual, the writing center is for all students, and so sometimes students feel intimidated, and some students will just drop into the AEC with like a one-on-one for someone that they're familiar with. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to just jump on to academic policy and syllabi. So really with this information, we just wanted to provide this because in this policy here, it is stating that professors are not allowed to assign something that is worth 10% or more of your grade during a week before finals week. And so we just, like this example is just important for folks to really be aware of, so that if you are like navigating these pieces in your classes, that you are bringing this up. Last time Nicolette had a great example of her experience with this as a student, and how her class brought this up to her professors and how they were really able to implement like change with the class because a professor missed this policy and was trying to implement an assignment close to finals that was more than the 10%, and they changed it because students noticed this and knew about that policy. And so really be aware of those things. I know it can be easy to miss, but really pay attention to your syllabi as well. And so something that I really want to talk about with syllabi in connection to what Nicolette was talking about with time management is what is it called? Semester at a glance. I like lost my train of thought. Semester at a glance. So I don't know. Has anyone heard of semester at a glance? You can do your raise hand emotion reaction. No? Okay.
I have not.
Okay, so Semester at a Glance is a really good resource that is available via Tilt. I'll go ahead and drop the link in here for the document, the virtual document that I want to talk about with this section, just because when you are looking at your syllabi, right, like you're trying to put all these pieces together, knowing that some things might change, deadlines might get extended, and assignment might get pulled out or pushed in. And so Semester at a Glance, if you want to look at the chat, is a huge visual of the semester, and it includes university dates such as like the drop deadline, the fall break, finals week, and students will use this as a visual to implement all the assignments for their class, just to give them a visual overview. So if some folks really like visuals and need something like more broad to look at, obviously, hopefully it's not the only thing you're using, because it can be kind of small to fit everything in there. But that's something that students will use, and something that we encourage students to use. And this resource is coming from Tilt. And so Tilt will update this every semester with the new semester dates, new deadlines for folks to have. So I would say this resource, you can always find it every semester with Tilt. So it's just a way to connect your syllabi with like a way to organize all of your stuff. So that's just something that I'm thinking of. Is there anything that I'm missing in this section, Nicola, that you want to add?
I think the only thing I would add is if you're waiting to get your syllabi to plan out like all those assignments and like look at the structure, there's sometimes past syllabi that's posted either on the CSU websites or just on the internet in general. And I encourage you just to find those for courses that you're taking, even if they're old. They can at least give you kind of some mental and academic preparation to what is to come while you're waiting to get your actual course syllabi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's also good to something that something good to do is like really understanding the percentage of like assignments throughout the semester, so that if there is something that you are struggling with, that you are aware that there's extra credit in there, or that you are aware if there's going to be an assignment that's going to get dropped, right? Like it's good to just know those pieces to prepare yourself. And hopefully you are connecting with your peers and professors to just really get reminders about this, and to talk through like what are your options if you are really struggling with the class. So I think in conjunction with knowing these pieces, it's really good to connect with professors. All right, next slide. The next piece is virtual academic supports. And so some of the things that we have in here for current and future success in classes is KUFERS, which is a CSU online test bank. And then I believe it is partnered with universities so that it's in alignment with like the academic, what is the word that I'm thinking of, Nicolette? The academic.
Like academic integrity and honor.
Yes. Yeah. So this is not something that is like pulling like things that are restricted for students. It's students who are pulling all their resources, are sharing their study tips, study resources for other folks to take advantage of. And so it can really support you in understanding the content a little differently, rather than like if you are used to just one way of studying, there are other ways that might be included in here. Each of the platform is great for planning ahead as well. So once you know what classes you are taking in the upcoming semester, you can try to find that information on this website. And so it helps you prepare so that you see if there are things available for that class in the spring. Let's see what else. Sometimes people will bookmark like different videos, different pieces of information that can be helpful. So I wasn't really aware of this. Nicolette has experience with this. I don't know if you want to share like your experience. Wait, did you say you had experience with this?
Which one?
With Koofers?
I have some experience with it. It's just a really great platform that houses all kinds of study information, such as like tests, note cards, flashcards, and professor ratings, and it breaks it down by course and the professor that taught the course. So you could look ahead and see if the professor you're taking the class with has any past academic resources students uploaded. You can also see the years that they were uploaded, so you can see if it's been a while that they taught, so you can kind of prepare and like gauge, is it going to be really hard since it's been a while since they've taught, or is it going to be more lenient, or if it's going to be a mixture of both. So that's kind of like how it's helpful for Koofers. And then Khan Academy and YouTube, like Diana was saying, you can use your syllabus to look through and look up videos of subject areas and topics that'll be covered, and you could take note of like how many folks have like viewed it as well, so you can kind of see like, oh, folks might have struggled on this in the past, maybe I will too. So let me like highlight this a little bit so I can know like and prepare a little bit more for when you engage with that content.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Something that can also be helpful as you're thinking about like accessing these resources that other folks have saved is to think about like what things you are also saving from your previous courses that could be tied to other things in the future, for resources and also just for reference of like the work that you've done, because that can be really important for like next steps or like furthering any pieces within your academics. So it's good just to have things downloaded, which can be kind of messy to organize, but it can be really helpful to be able to refer back to things that you've had in the past. All right, you want to jump on the next slide? So another piece that would be really helpful in providing academic support is just really researching your professors ahead of time. So it's registration season, and folks are getting ready to take classes and will register for classes in the spring. So part of like getting a good experience is really understanding and like what professors you're going to be taking classes with. And so Rate My Professor is a really good platform to get an understanding from a student perspective, especially of the personality of professors, where their energy is going towards more of like, is it going towards more of it to their classes, or is it more towards research? Because that can really dictate like how engaged they are with the student. Like if they're responsive online, really like with emails, or if they're really busy with research, it might be hard to access them, right? And so it's really good to know those things ahead of time. You can see how they navigate and structure their courses, how difficult their courses are, grading, a ton of things. So it's really good. And then if you leave comments, it's helpful for other folks as well, right? So this can be really important. And I've heard so many folks that they said that they wish they would have looked up their professor because they didn't know that there was another professor who felt like was more fitting for their learning, right? And so it happens sometimes, but just knowing that this resource exists is really important. Yeah, so just make sure to do this every semester. I know registration is happening now, so take some time to do that. Free printing. We definitely want to mention this just because we want folks to be aware that this is a resource that's available to you. So if you are in the Fort Collins area like now, and there are things that you need more on paper than just looking at a screen for so long, right? That can be really hard. We just want you to know that your department should have different like printing locations. And so you can ask your academic advisor or professors, or typically you can find this in your department website. We don't have the links for everything right now, but just know that your department should offer different locations on campus. And then because of COVID-19, that schedule of like when those labs are open for printing or which locations are still open should be updated. So just keep an eye out on that schedule. And then you can also find free printing in the SDPS offices, which are the Student Diversity Programs and Services, like the back office, El Centro. Those are just some of the SDPS offices. Typically, they have printing for students with computers in their offices. I would say just keep in mind what their office hours are now, also because of COVID. Some are very limited and some have just moved all online just recently this week. And so it's good to know those pieces. As you all know, right, the AAC also had free printing and access to computers for students. We are not open at the moment, but we will keep students updated when we are able to have those resources available in person. And then also the Adult Learner Veteran Services ALVS office at the Lower Student Center is another location other than the department ones for your major. And then study spaces. So the study spaces that you see on the left side are the updated study spaces that are available as of this semester. Some of them were removed, some spaces were altered and changed due to COVID. And so these are locations that students are still going to now because they need help with like having a space and an environment that is conducive to their learning. And so if that's something that's huge for you, and if you have capacity, right, and if you feel comfortable using these spaces, And if you need help navigating anything at home, if you need access to things, just talk to your retention specialist so we can get you connected with resources if you are mainly navigating being home and trying to do everything at home, which can be hard, right? And then off campus, right? Whatever you can find off campus, if there are coffee shops that are still abiding, right? Hopefully by the restrictions, and hopefully they're not too full. A lot of folks are having to go to different locations now if they're not on campus. And so a lot of folks are going to coffee shops. And these are just some of the examples that are near campus. Whew. So we went through a lot, and that was just like a recap of some academic support, things that you can engage with. Nicolette talked a lot about time management, a lot of great tips. Is there anything that folks feel like they want to share that was like the biggest takeaway from them, or something that they were really reflecting on from any of the things that we talked about?
Thanks for going over all the resources available. I've always struggled with asking for help in general. And as I'm just getting back in the academic setting and moving forward, it's going to be absolutely imperative from peers to, classmates, teachers, all of it. I'm getting a little better, but thank you for just reminding us what's out there. And also, I had no idea what CUFERS was, so thank you for that. And I really had no idea that you could rate my professor, because there's different teaching styles, and gosh, I wish that existed a while back. But thanks for letting me know. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shauna. Thank you for sharing. Cool.
Same. The Kirchhoff was pretty helpful. Like, I didn't know about that, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah. I'm glad you want to go ahead and check in about the leaders.
Yeah, if I can figure out how to work my keyboard. So I wanted to just give everybody a quick thank you and end with this picture. I feel like it resonates a lot and is impactful. So ask, always acknowledge. And what I kind of take from this is to continue to be curious. Always ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because you are surrounded by folks that really want to support you with your success, and make sure you're equipped with the knowledge that you need and are seeking. And the last thing is all the knowledge that you are shared with and are exposed to, know that it may not all be applicable to you and might not all be useful for you, and know that that's okay. Use what is useful for you, and that you find beneficial. So for some quick reminders, to go over the required ones real quick, the self-care one is still going on. That'll end tomorrow. So get your Padlet in if you haven't already. Read the articles if you have time, and complete the post-assessment by tomorrow. If you can't, that's perfectly okay. Just get it done when you have time. The pre-recorded session for academics part 2, that was last week, and it's a required session. So whenever you get a chance, if you haven't already, watch the recordings and submit the post-assessment as well. Session 6, which was last Thursday, session 9, which is today, and session 11, which was the panel last Tuesday. If you would like to engage with those recordings, or if you attended, feel free to do so and complete the post-assessment whenever you get some time. And I'll go over the December sessions in the Canvas reminder tomorrow as well.
I just posted the CLF evaluation for this one for folks who are here. So as long as you just submit that letting us know that you were here, that would be great. Thank you for those reminders, Nicolette. Mm-hmm. The last thing I want to mention for our Arrive students is just a reminder about the great resource that we have in our office that came a little late in the semester, but better than never. Our STEM peer mentors are AAC students who have been through Arrive and are in STEM majors and are here as a resource for folks. And so check out the STEM peer mentor module in Canvas for Arrive. The module includes all of their bios. They do drop-ins 1 hour a week other than like the break. And that's just if you want to connect with someone, if you just want to connect about like resources, if you want to connect about just anything really. If you need just support, they have those drop-in hours and information and links in the module. And then they also host events for you also, like community building events. They're going to do a yoga, like a virtual yoga, December 2nd at 12. And so you can see all that information in the module. They're hoping for more student interactions. They came in a little late, so they are definitely needing some love, and they're here for you. And so they'll be available next semester as well. And even if you're not in Arrive anymore, they're still going to be accessible to all Thrive students, which is the program that you all will be a part of in the spring. But just wanted you all to know that this resource is here, and they're great. And it's always just great to connect with peer mentors, especially other folks who are in the AEC. So definitely encourage you all to take advantage. But I think that's everything we have. Thank you all. I know we went a little over in time, so thank you for being here. We're going to hang out here for a little bit if anyone has any questions. But thank you all. Nicolette, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just thank y'all for joining us. And thanks to those that'll engage with the recording. And definitely let us know if you need anything.
Cool. Bye, y'all. Have a good evening.